Hey everyone, it's Tiffany with Tiffany Flight and Health and Rock Bottom Wellness. And I am here to talk with you tonight about a CGM. So a CGM is a continuous glucose monitor. And I did this thing recently just to sort of look into my system and hack my own system to see how my glucose was responding and how my insulin was responding to the different foods I was eating and also the behavior I was doing with regard to exercise or stress or sleep. So what I did is signed up to do a program with something called NutriSense for 3 months. Okay. So NutriSense is this whole comprehensive program and app where you can purchase a program. It's usually 1 month, 3 months, 6 months, or a year, whatever. You can choose whatever one you want to do. And then I did the 3 month. And so what they do is they send you these kits of glucose monitors, continuous glucose monitors. Okay. So this was the brand that they have. I'm sure you've seen them on commercials, but the brand that they have is called the Libre Freestyle or Freestyle, something like that. Freestyle Libre is the type of CGM that NutriSense uses. Okay, so they send you 2 of those per month. Each of those sensors works for 2 weeks. All right, so I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt, so you're not gonna be able to see exactly, but if you are watching this live, or on the video and not on my podcast, you'll see that this little round circle here on the back of my arm is where that glucose monitor works. And so each monitor that you have, you just switch arms, okay? So I've never had any issues with it coming off. I've never had any issues with the shower or baths. I guess I just don't soak my arm in the bath. And then I've worn it in the sauna, but I don't put my sauna up at the higher temperature like I normally would if I was not wearing that. So there is some warnings about that in the NutriSense app. Okay, so here's how this works. You put on the back of your arm. It doesn't hurt. It's just like a little spring activated adapter applicator you put on the back of your arm. I think one time I did it, I had some blood drip out of it. I don't know why, I must have hit a capillary or something, but I haven't had any issues with it whatsoever. It does not hurt. You don't feel it. You don't even know that it's on you after you just realize you get used to it after the first one. So it doesn't hurt at all. And what it does is it continuously monitors your glucose levels throughout the day. All right. So 24 hours. Okay. So it's keeping track of everything 24 hours. And then there's a really good comprehensive app that comes with it. And so you just routinely scan with your app, with the sensor. You just hold your phone up to the sensor, and then it gives you all of your readings. And within the app, you can do all kinds of fancy things. You can track your food. You can track your activity. You can track, I think you can even track your other mindfulness type of exercises, things like that. I think you can put all that in there. You can do experiments with certain types of foods. So I wanted to track some specific foods to see how my body responded to them. And so I put them in the app into a little category, and then I scanned them and tested them and went along that way. All right, I took this one step further, and I actually ordered something called the Keto Mojo, which is it's a little tool that you could check your glucose with a finger stick, which is what most people are probably more familiar with. If you're diabetic, you absolutely know what that is all about. I don't think all diabetics use a continuous glucose monitor, but you can compare the glucose from a finger stick and compare that to the continuous glucose monitor, which is looking at your interstitial glucose, which is a little different reading. And so that was a little bit of a learning curve, wrapping my brain around the fact that it isn't going to line up 100% with the finger stick, what I'm used to. All right. So it's usually, for me, it's just been a little bit higher than the finger stick. All right. So it just works that way, where it's just continuously checking your glucose, and then what you do and how you're behaving, what you're eating, how you're exercising, sleeping, all of that is registered on this app. Okay, so if you, in your first month, you get a dietitian that works for NutriSense that helps read the data with you and explain things to you and guide you, and you can work on specific things with them if you want, and that is extra per month if you want to do it after that first month. The person that worked with me was really helpful and informative, and I really enjoyed working with her. All right, so the three main things that I want to talk about, and it's something that I talk about all of the time in my programs with the people that I work on one-on-one. And sometimes they probably don't even know we're dealing with it. I talk about it all the time, but it's something that my programs are designed to deal with, just all inclusive. It's just part of the plan, because I know how much glucose and your insulin are affected by these things. All right, so let's talk about the first thing. This is the thing that everybody understands at some level. And what I understand and what I see from people is that it is very much downplayed, and that is stress. And part of the problem is we are constantly talking about stress, and we talk about it so much, it's so common, that I think people it's just watered down. People don't understand actually how debilitating and how much it can be affecting all the things going on in our bodies. So we need to understand that stress is a major player in how our glucose is utilized. And I found that to be 100% true when I was dealing with some stress that didn't seem like it was so stressful, because we like to compartmentalize and we say it's good stress or bad stress. Your body doesn't care. Your body does not care what kind of stress you are having. It's trying to deal with it biochemically to help you through. So the stress I was dealing with seemed like a good stress, but it was something that actually impacted my continuous glucose monitoring for days before and after the event. It made me less insulin sensitive. So the foods I was eating kept my blood sugar up much higher for longer than it should have. Okay, so you think about someone who is under chronic stress due to illness, to disease, to family situations, money problems, they hate their job, they're having all kinds of other things coming at them. They're in school, they're working, they're commuting, whatever it may be. We are bombarded with those types of things all the time. And so when you are in that constant state of stress and you have no coping mechanisms, and your body does not know how to cope with it because it doesn't have the right nutrition, or it doesn't have the right herbs, it doesn't have the right lifestyle behaviors like mindfulness, meditation, yoga, whatever that might look like for you, then your glucose becomes higher in your blood. So blood sugar becomes higher. Your insulin doesn't work as well. And that sets us up for things like prediabetes, type 2 diabetes, chronic disease down the road. Okay, so that is the first thing that needs to be addressed, is your stress. I saw full on several times, and in specific instances where I had some little stressors going on, like I said, I perceived most of them as good stress, but I saw firsthand how that was affecting the sensitivity to the glucose that was in my body. My body was not as able to absorb that glucose that I was eating. And that wasn't even eating, bad foods, quote unquote, bad foods, really high sugary foods. That might've been eating some rice. Okay. So it's not even that it's just going to affect you when you're eating, just junk food. It can be unhealthy foods, like high carbohydrate foods that turn into sugar, into the glucose. That can be absolutely affected when you are under stress. So that is something that was black and white. I knew that from the textbook. I knew that from working with people, but to see it firsthand in my own and play out in real time was pretty informative. It was really informative. And that's why I wanted to do this talk with you tonight, so that you can understand this and see that this is such an important thing. I can't stress enough how stress affects you negatively, and you need to understand that and deal with it. And there's just so many ways to deal with it. That could be a whole nother talk. All right. We've talked about a lot of that before, but stress, absolutely something that needs to be addressed. All right. So sleep or lack thereof. Okay. So sleep absolutely can be considered a stress if you are not getting enough hours, if you are not getting enough restorative and restful sleep, if you are not getting just overall quality sleep, then that causes stress. So you become less insulin sensitive at night. So eating from dinner time, snacking all night until you go to bed, what that does is it raises your blood sugar, it raises your insulin, and that glucose stays up higher later at night for longer because you are less sensitive to the insulin, just naturally. So when we are constantly snacking at night, especially when people reach for those types of foods, it's usually not healthy foods. You're binging on something in front of Netflix or whatever. Those things will stay with you longer, and that then drives up cortisol, which keeps you up at night even longer, or can keep you up longer at night. So what you need to do is to work on balancing blood sugar with eating proteins, fats, and carbs throughout the day. Get yourself to the point where you can cut yourself off from eating at night. And then your sleep will improve, and for sure, your cortisol levels will come down. You'll become more insulin sensitive when your body figures this stuff out, and you will have a better overall sleep, and you're going to reduce your stress, and you're going to wake up the next day feeling much, much better. So I know I've already talked with you guys many times about the Oura ring that I wear. I'm not wearing it right now, but I use that to track my sleep, and that is very telling as well. So nights where I ate dinner much later, nights when I ate food that wasn't as healthy. So even we're talking like popcorn or something like that, it seems pretty, people gravitate towards that as a healthy snack. But it's very carby, so it turns into glucose. And what happens is the blood sugar stays up longer. It takes a lot more time to come down. On those nights, either when I ate later dinner or had a snack at night, it was like poor numbers for sleep. I didn't get the hours. I didn't get into deep sleep. I didn't get into REM sleep for the time that your body should. And then I wake up the next day feeling terrible. Okay, so then that sets you up again for stress. So it's just super important to understand what you're eating and how that affects your glucose levels and how your body responds to them. So things you can do to mitigate that glucose surge at night and benefit your sleep is by doing things like taking a walk after dinner, trying to avoid those late night snacks. Okay, so if you're doing that once in a while, you probably can handle it. But if you're doing it almost every night, you're going to have horrible sleep, and you're going to be stressed out, and you're going to be insulin resistant pretty soon. So what you need to do is, now that it's a little bit nicer out for a lot of us, you go out and take a short walk around the block, even take a long walk if you can, or maybe you do some quick yoga. Something like that is shown to help us make more room in the body for taking in that glucose. That was the other thing. This transitions me into the last thing to talk about. But those are some things you can do that will help set you up for better sleep for the day, for the night. All right, so that transitions, like I said, into exercise. So the impact that exercise has on your ability to take in, for your cells to take into the body, the sugar into the body, is pretty black and white. So again, I've known this because of what the textbook says. I've known this from working with people and seeing how their body responds to exercise. But I saw it firsthand in real time, again, many, many times. So I usually exercise in the morning, sometimes in the afternoon, but I prefer to do it in the morning. And if I had one of those nights where I ate late or ate a snack or too much of a snack at night, my sleep wasn't affected negatively, like I just explained, but then my blood sugar would be higher in the morning than it should be. Okay, so there's a rise in cortisol with that too, more than you should in the morning. And then when I would exercise in the morning, bam, the blood sugar went right back down. Part of that could be the timing of just how your body works throughout the day. But the exercise, when I exercise in that situation where I ate later at night, the blood sugar went down right away. From that could even be like a 30-minute exercise. So again, it just goes to show how exercise, we all know is good for us. Movement is good for us. And I talk about that a lot too. But it's really important to understand how that can help with those blood sugar surges, and it can help mitigate the types of foods that you're eating. It shouldn't be that you eat this so you eat something maybe quote unquote bad for you, and then all you have to do is just go run around the block and you'll take care of it. That's not what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to say that your patterns of eating, and if you get into good steady pattern of having some sort of movement and exercise, at least once a day, and if you can sprinkle light types of things or little time slots throughout the day with movement and exercise, you're going to have better blood sugar control. So if you are someone who is pre-diabetic or is on the verge of, someone they're watching your blood sugar and your insulin, really getting into a good exercise routine will be very, very beneficial to you, but you really, really have to work on that sleep as well. And the stress, it all goes together. One thing goes into the next. So by working on one, you're sort of naturally working on the other. So it doesn't have to seem so insurmountable or so difficult. So make sure that you are addressing all of those things. And if you want to do the NutriSense or something like that, I know there's a lot of them out there. If you want a little bit more feedback on that, personally or, more privately, just let me know. And we can talk about that. Just contact my email at hello@tiffanyflayton.com. And then we can discuss that a little bit further. I can guide you in the right steps towards that. But all I know is without doing that monitor and looking at the sensor, and at first I was pretty obsessive about it, scanning my sensor constantly. And then I started doing it just a little bit more normal throughout the day, maybe 4 or 5 times throughout the day versus every 20 minutes or whatever I was doing in the beginning. But I was excited to learn about it. But what I learned is that all of that reinforced all my behaviors. Everything that I knew in the textbook panned out for me. But what I'm trying to help you understand is that without even doing that, you don't have to do that. But if you start changing the composition of your foods, you're going to naturally start helping those things that I just mentioned. All right. I will say, I forgot to mention this. So I told you about the experiments. I wanted to see how my body responded to different types of foods. And I set this up in the app where you can set up testing basically of different foods. And so I just did a 30-gram experiment with 30 grams of carbs at one setting and not doing any other foods or anything at that time. So it was just 30 grams of carbs. And then I, tested my blood sugar before and then after. And what I found out was, again, not super surprising for me. I already knew that some carbohydrates I don't respond well to. But there was some things that were kind of surprising, like oranges to eat. I ate 2 oranges, that's about 30 grams of carbohydrates. And my blood sugar response to oranges wasn't great. Like I should never eat an orange by itself based on the results that I had. I should be eating them with something like fat or protein, which is absolutely what I tell people that I work with all the time to do in order to stave off blood sugar dysregulation. Bananas, that wasn't too much of a surprise to me. I don't really care. I don't really like bananas that much, but absolutely those were not the fruit that I should reach out for. I tested oatmeal, not a great response to oatmeal either. I tested sweet potato. That was pretty decent. I love sweet potatoes, but I don't like eating 30 grams of it all in one setting all by itself. That was not that great. But it was just kind of interesting. Again, a lot of things that I already knew, but the things that were surprising to me were the oranges, actually, and the fact that oatmeal was not good for me at all. And I kind of knew that, but I just didn't think it would be that bad. The other thing that I tested were berries, and berries are considered low glycemic. So it's pretty obvious that that would probably be okay for me. But I do know people who eat fruit and it triggers cravings, and they get jittery and anxious once they start adding them back. And so I was curious how fruit like that, the berries, affected me. And I ate 2 cups of a combination of blackberries and raspberries. And that's a lot of fruit in one setting, two cups worth. It was really good, but I had a perfect response with blood sugar and insulin with that. So that's the other thing I learned. I assumed I would be okay with that, but it was really okay with that. So I actually might add more fruit to my diet. I don't do a lot of fruit because I was just kind of concerned how I responded to it. So I do limited amounts of it, but those are good for me. So that's kind of the things you can do with that too. And, again, you can use the monitor, or you can sort of listen to your body, look at your symptoms. You could do, a finger stick. You can buy your own little monitor. I don't know, they're not that expensive. The little test strips are more expensive than the machine itself, the little tester. So that's something that you could absolutely do and see how you respond to things, or again, get used to listening to your body. Most people have gotten so far away from doing that. And so it would be a good little, a good little thing to try for yourself and see, do you have cravings perk up when you eat carbohydrates? Do you feel really slumped down after eating them a couple hours later? Do you feel like you have cravings all the time? Do you need to eat all the time? Do you need to eat constantly throughout the day? If you are any of those things, like I mentioned, then you probably have some blood sugar dysregulation and you need some support with that. So reach out to me if you need any help, questions, hello@tiffanyflayton.com, and I can help you get on your way to feeling better. All right, have a nice night. Thank you. Bye.